Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So the video I'm going to react to today is something that, I've known about for a number of years. I'm quite sure anywhere you go in the African diaspora where there's Black people who live under a system that, let's say, gives a certain privilege to persons who are, let's say, white, European descendants, or something close to white in comparison to people who are non-white. So, whether you're in the United States or you're in Brazil in this case, you're familiar with these types of quote unquote compliments that you can get from people that when you analyze them, they're not really compliments because of, what they're actually trying to say without saying it. So today's video is called, "For a Black Woman, You're Kind of Pretty." Black Brazilian woman shares this and other racist compliments she's received. Now, this isn't the first video or the first blog article that I've covered, but this is just, I often break people down into when we talk about people who travel to Brazil, you either go in there just temporarily, just as a quick visit. You might happen to live there because you've been sent to Brazil because of you work for a multinational company, or you're there who's going to be living in Brazil somewhat permanently. And your experiences in Brazil are going to be different if you're just visiting for a few days or a few weeks or even a month versus spending time there. If you talk to Black Brazilians who just have a certain consciousness about them, you'll hear this. Over the years, I've seen numerous comments, people that have shared on social networks talking about the things that white Brazilians will say to them with the idea that it's some type of compliment when it really isn't. So before I get into this, make sure you like this video, share this video. Definitely consider subscribing to the channel. Click on that notification bell so you'll get videos when I post them. And with that said, let me get a little bit more into the video and, put it into context and just explain a few things about how common this is in Brazil. Okay. So this is Layla Diaz. She recently published a video addressing phrases often directed at Black women that aren't actually compliments. Now, there was a video that, it did pretty well on the channel, maybe, I don't know, a few weeks, about a month ago, actress Camila Panga. And she said this oftentimes, that people continue to ask her why it is that she identifies herself as Black. Her being fair skinned. Some people don't see her as Black. Some people do. It led to a really, we'll say, debate on the channel. People who saw her as Black. A lot of people just saying, let's not call her Black. She's just mixed. Other people who just, well, she looks like a white girl with a tan. Everybody had their opinion on it. There's comments still going on about the Camila Panga video. Definitely check it out. So when compliments, so-called compliments, how can we look at them? Because when you look at the compliments that people say, the comments that people make, people would look and they swear up and down they're giving somebody a compliment, but it's actually by them having a certain view of whiteness in comparison to Blackness. It just says to a person, well, to be somebody from your racial group, you're pretty good, or, you're attractive, or, you carry yourself well, or you have an education, or, in Brazil, they say you have an alma branca. You say negro de alma branca, which means you're a Black person with a white soul. Okay. There's so many different sayings in Brazil that have this racist element to it. And for years, Black Brazilians didn't really catch on to what these compliments or comments were actually saying. Actually, when you think about it, it's actually the value that they give you is connected to your proximity to whiteness. What are your features? Do you have extremely kinky hair? Do you have a looser curl? Is your skin very dark skin, or is it light to medium brown skin, caramel complexion? Obviously, that's more acceptable for those who have a racist attitude. It also serves to, if you make enough of these compliments towards Black people, it's a way of distancing them from Black identity, where everyone knows that when we talk about the winning team and the so-called losing team, people see that the winning team usually has a lot of people who look white. So being Black, people want to identify with the winning team. And oftentimes, particularly in countries like Brazil, they will distance themselves from having a Black identity because they don't want to be associated with all the negative things that Brazil associates with Black people. So it's another way of distancing one from their Black identity. Like, oh, you're not really Black. You're a Pardo, you're Moreno. These are terms that in some ways, Pardo signifies mixed race, whereas Moreno is we'll say a softer way of calling somebody Black, or even saying that they're not Black. It's a softer term. As I've explained in numerous videos, Moreno can be almost anything. A white person with dark hair, a person who's of mixed race, a dark-skinned Black person. All of these people can be considered a Moreno. And for many years, persons of visible African ancestry would use terms like Moreno to distance themselves from being Black, to reject the identidade negra, meaning Black identity. Then, as I've said, I've talked about this a number of times in an article I did some years ago, where some college students at the University of Brasilia, in Brazil's the nation's capital city of Brasilia, they copied a campaign that Black students at Harvard were doing some years ago, where they held up signs just showing the phrases that they would hear from people every day, and just, analyzing them, like, listen to the things that we have to endure being on this college campus. So anyway, with that said, I want to get into the video, really short video by this young lady, Layla Gias, and she's just sharing some of the quote unquote compliments that people have said. I've done other articles on this. There's a long list of terms and compliments and comments. And I say compliments in quotations because they're not really compliments, but these are things that Black people in Brazil will hear every day. And some of these you're going to be familiar with, because no matter where you are, if you're Black, and the standard of beauty or standard of intelligence, the standard of everything is going to be whiteness, you're going to be familiar with some of these phrases as she says. So I'm going to just overdub. It's a really short video, but just listen to a couple of the things that she said. Then I'm going to put this in further context.
Coisas que não são
Things that aren't
elogios, versão
compliments,
mulher
Black woman
preta.
version.
Nossa, você é
Wow,
tão
you're so
bonita.
beautiful.
Tem
You have
traços
fine
finos,
features,
né?
huh?
Nossa,
Wow,
mas
but you're
você
not
nem é
even
tão
that
negra
Black.
assim.
Wow,
Nossa,
your
até que
hair
seu
is so
cabelo é
soft,
macio,
isn't it?
né? Ah,
Ah,
pra
for a
uma
Black
preta até que
woman, you're
você é
kind of pretty.
bonita.
So as I said, I'm sure there's people who have heard this phrase, just from my analysis, just following the situation in Brazil. I mean, this is something that you hear from Black Brazilians all the time. They always relaying the type of things that they hear just being in Brazilian society every day, things that are supposed to be masked as compliments that actually are not. So how I want to put this in context, I'm going to be referring to this dissertation from 2018 called Black Journalists in Rio de Janeiro, the Life Trajectories and Narratives of Resistance in the Face of Racism, Andrea Coutinho da Silva Lobaki. This is her dissertation from 2018. I'm just going to use a few pieces from it. Let me see. So where is this? Starting here, it says, as the recognition of Blackness is inextricably linked to the process of living and racial experiences, the first notions of self-perception are constructed through looks, conflicts, and encounters and representations. So this is a 28-year-old, the comment here is by a 28-year-old woman named Khalifa. All right, let me see if I can find a little bit about her here. From the original article, 28. She is a host of a channel, a surfing channel, and about youth culture. So she was interviewed for this particular segment, for the dissertation that this woman wrote. She says Black, like she identifies as Black. She says, this racial awareness has always been with me, but obviously in a childhood and adolescence, people would talk to me and say, wow, you're Black, but you have fine features, or you're Black, but you're not so Black. As a teenager, I took this as a compliment and said, wow, that's nice, right? I'm Black, but I have a nose like this. I'm Black. I have eyes like that. And if it was a very good thing to be like that, not to be so Black, or rather, as if it was a very good thing to be like that, not to be so Black. but I've always considered myself a Black person, and I've heard these comments. Again, this is from a woman named Khalifa, who's 28. Going on and analyzing some of her comments here. It says, okay, Khalifa's comments presents us with an identity conflict regarding her view of herself as a Black woman, both from a personal and interpersonal perspective. It is worth emphasizing that this conflict occurred at a specific time in her life during childhood and the transition to adolescence. With regard to representations of Blackness and quote unquote good appearance, states that although we are no longer under the aegis of the colonial enterprise nor of slavery, the persistence of negative representations about Black people end up constituting another ideology, the ideology of color and body. Therefore, the weight of racism causes damage to self-image and self-perception, resulting in a struggle between rejection and acceptance of oneself as a Black citizen. Now, one thing I want to point out here, this thing about good appearance in Brazil is called boa aparência. It's just when years ago, Brazil's newspaper and advertisements would openly say, we prefer white people here. We prefer a white girl that's, to be a babysitter. We prefer a white person in this particular position in the company. And when it was declared that just openly saying they had a preference for whiteness, they changed the terminology they would use. They would use a term called boa aparência, meaning good appearance. And good appearance was a way of saying white without making it blatant in the newspapers or in the advertisements, right? So this idea of good appearance is connected to a proximity to whiteness or whiteness itself. Given this, the author exemplifies this process as a social mirror, as the Black Brazilian population is torn between its socially constructed image and the search for a positive self-image. It is this awareness that leads to self-love. Not allowing this social image to destroy your self-image is a challenge. Building self-image, quote unquote, new Black, based on African identity references recreated in Brazil is also a challenge. So we're talking here about Black Brazilians who've managed to fight through racist standards in Brazil that always gives a higher, how can we say, a privilege to your proximity to whiteness while leaving those who are Black towards the bottom in whatever genre that we're talking about. Black Brazilians have gone through this identity transformation where they want to see Blackness in a more positive light, thus creating this idea of a negro novo, a new Black, right? Being the daughter of a white mother and a Black father, Khalifa's physical appearance carries a mixture of traits from both races, which led to her hearing affirming comments about not being so Black. So again, this is the way Brazilian society functions. It gives these, let's say, just kind of off-kilt type of comments that are supposed to be masked as compliments when in actuality, because they're diminishing someone's Blackness and saying, well, you're not so Black, or to be Black, you're pretty, or to be Black, you're intelligent, or to be Black, you're well educated, you're well spoken. We're all familiar with these types of phrases, again, that mask it puts the Black person, the Black subject, closer to whiteness. And in some cases, Black people are going to be like, oh, I'm being accepted in the white circle. So then they will distance themselves from being Black. So this is something that we see all the time. I made reference to a group of Black Harvard students. They inspired a campaign of University of Brasilia student. They influenced a campaign by Black students at the University of Brasilia in Brazil's national, the capital city. And they did a photographic campaign against racism by just posting some of the comments that people would say to them. Say, do you wash your hair? You're Afro light. She's light skinned there. Let me see, what else do we have here? You're not Black. You're a light skinned moreno. Again, this is what people in his family was saying, or, people, acquaintances are close to him. Let's see, what else do we have? Okay, so this girl, here's the comment: only for effing, not for marriage. This is what they say about Black and, we'll say, mulatto women. Like, you're not worthy of marrying, but I'll spend the night with you, right? This girl says, você não parece negra. Você tem aqueles traços negros. Okay, no tem. You don't have the Black features. It says you don't look Black. You don't have those Black features. Wow, you're going to college and you live in the periphery or periphery, which is the outskirts of the city, considered the poor areas of cities in Brazil. Listen, para uma negra você é até bonita. Saying for a black woman, you're even pretty. Okay, again, você é uma negra bonita porque você tem nariz fino. You're a pretty black woman because you have a thin nose, it says there. Um, falei morena porque se falesse negra, você ficaria constrangido. I said, or say, I called you morena because if I had said you were black, you would have been embarrassed. Where did you get those green eyes from? Let me see. What else do we have here? What do you do to wash this hair? Okay, so it just goes on and on. These are just, você nem parece negro. You don't even look black. Okay. So these are the types of comments that Black Brazilians will hear all the time, right? Which is what the lady in the first video was talking about. Let me see, consciousness and knowledge fighting racial stereotypes, increasing self-esteem and Black presence on college campuses are challenges met in Brasilia. This is an article from 2017. Where racism hides is there lurking even when Black people themselves don't recognize it. For a while, it took Black Brazilians a minute to understand that some of these comments or compliments are actually hiding, they're masking the racist thoughts of the person who's making these comments. This girl says being mixed doesn't make me Black. I did a video about this probably a couple of years ago. Compliments that devalue Blackness by exalting European attributes. And this is exactly what she's talking about in this particular blog post. Slandering a phenotypic characteristic of my race. You are slandering me. It doesn't matter if you think that my hair has a looser curl, that it automatically ceases to be, crespo, which is kinky curly. By exalting a feature that makes clear my miscegenation or racial mixture and not allowing the Black phenotype to be manifested completely, you are valuing my embranquecimento or my white attributes. Okay. Your notion of beauty is not necessarily a personal opinion. It is taught. When you say that cabello crespo or curly kinky hair is ugly, you're propagating a bias that is imposed. So what this girl is saying here throughout, like I said, I did a story about her like maybe a couple of years ago, and she's talking about, look, having racial mixture does not make me less Black. And people use these types of comments or quote unquote compliments to try to position her away from her Blackness, right? This is something that goes on in Brazil all the time, which is the whole point of what the video by, what is her name? Leila Dias. That's what the whole video is about. The type of compliments that are backhanded racial insults, if you will. This is just everyday Brazil. So if you ever go to Brazil and you live there, this is, if you live there long enough, it doesn't happen to you. It'll happen to some Black Brazilian that this is just Brazilian society. So just wanted to drop this video. It's a quick one. What did you think? Drop a comment in the comment section, get a conversation started. Like this video, share this video, consider subscribing to the channel, click on the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. And with that said, I'm going to end this video here and request that you all come back. Check out the next video that I post.